everybody. We're here at Bluestone Farms, and we're here joined by Dr. Rick Swarts. We're really honored to have him here tonight, and he's been attending the Returning Lord for 43 years, and he has a lot of unique experiences with Father that he would like to share with us tonight. And so we're capturing this on video for all future generations to be able to hear what it was like to be with Father and to be in his presence. And imagine if there was a live video production for the people who were attending Jesus, how valuable those tapes would be today. Yeah. So that's the spirit in which we are conducting these testimonies, is so that thousands and millions of people in the future can enjoy hearing from a direct testimony of people who knew Father and what his nature was like and what he had to go through. So let's turn it over to Rick. Thanks for coming.
Okay. Thank you very much, Craig.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. We want to pray.
Oh, okay.
Also, would you like to pray?
Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful that you have brought us together here. And we're so grateful that we were able to respond to the second coming of Christ. We're so grateful for your salvation, your forgiveness, your patience with us, Heavenly Father. We want to thank our true Father and Mother Khan in the spiritual world for all they have done, and for every brother and sister who has been faithful and contributed. We're so grateful that Rick can join us, and we're so grateful that we can learn about each other, many things that we usually don't share. Please speak to Rick today, whatever we need to hear and whatever future generations need to hear. We thank you and pray this in all our names. Bless Central families. Adieu.
Adieu.
Okay, well, I'm very grateful to be able to give this testimony. I'll be mainly talking about my experiences with True Father, Reverend Moon, in the Pontinal area of South America, where I spent 19 months down there with our True Father. I started a diary right before I went down there, about a few months before. Lourdes and I, my wife Lourdes and I, were National Messiah's Dominican Republic, so I started taking a diary in terms of that responsibility. And I really recommend a diary because I've been rereading it, and so many details that I totally had forgotten, and some that I misremembered. So it's really, really good. So every day I try to, every night I try to add to that diary. So I have all these experiences of, Father's words that just sometimes a small group. Sometimes you have, 3, 4 people. Sometimes just myself when Father was there. And Father's words, experiences, what fish were caught, what day. I would even record that, I remember in a tent with the rain coming down and the wind coming through, and using a flashlight to be able to record in terms of the diary. So, reading through that, I had experience with some people here. We were talking about Denton Smith, who has here in Bluestone Farms a property, and he's in there. Ted O'Grady, I ran into him relatively early on. He was pioneering Bonito down in Mato Grosso do Sul, and have him describing that. Rod Cameron, who we had come down to do a fact-finding tour as the photographer and help produce the Pontinal book. That's the most comprehensive English language textbooks in terms of the Pontinal. And he came down, took photographs. The one problem with the diary is I was reading through. I had 3 volumes. I only was able to get through the first because it became very emotional. First of all, Father came to life once again reading through the diary. And in addition to his tremendous effort, and I'll describe a little bit tonight in terms of effort that he was giving down there. 77 years old when I went down there. and 78 also, and the effort that he was given, but also somebody that was living totally for the sake of others. Just an amazing experience of living for the sake of others. And also I became very repentful, a little bit down reading it, because he gave me so many directions, so many things he told me to do. He gave me responsibilities. At one point put me as vice president of the Jardim, Salobra, Rio Perdido project down there. At one point put me in charge of all the waters, and has me do a fish farm in the Pantanal in the Amazon. And I look back and it's a failure. Okay? So maybe by giving a testimony tonight, there'll be something that will good to come out of it. As I see myself getting a little bit moved here, let me try to get something more to cheer me up. So I'm gonna in 4 days from now is the 38th anniversary of our blessing, Lourdes and mine, July 1st, 1982. Hard to believe. So someone was asking me once, do you have any advice, 38 years, any advice you can give in terms of being married? And I thought, yeah, I do have. I have a piece of advice to give in terms of that. When we first got blessed, Lourdes, being very wise, came to me and said, husbands and wives sometimes have very different points of views and feel very strongly about, the wife feels strongly this way, husband feels strongly that way. And not that Lourdes feels strongly about any points of view, right? Mm-hmm. But she said, I got an idea, because I want to have a peaceful marriage. I don't want to have these kind of, so I have an idea. Any kind of major, important decision I'd like you to make. And I'll just make the small, minor decisions. And and I liked it, I accepted it. And in 38 years, there's yet to be one major decision that's had to be made. Maybe I'll tell one more anecdote, and I know Lourdes doesn't want me speaking about her, but I got to do this to start off the anecdote. She'll be very upset, but I'm driving, so she has to come back when I drive. Well, I don't know.
Stay at our house tonight.
I don't know if you know this about Lourdes, but many times she has spiritually open. She had an experience of going, for example, in a Christian church, and the pastor asked her to come up and pray, and she goes up and prays, and she sees angels in the back. And one time the head angel came up for directions. She gave him directions. So when she went to Chungpyeong also, many of these experiences, for 40 days, and I have to say that she would not even tell me about these. I think to her it was like a little bit like breathing air. I mean, sometimes I find out these long time afterward. But, for 40 days she saw her mother who had passed away. And she really wanted to see her father. And on the last day, she was finally able to see her father and talk to her father. And one more anecdote before I get to the point. As an example, she was in the Speakers Bureau working with Cheryl Landon. Cheryl Landon's the daughter of Michael Landon. People know Michael Landon, probably this group knows, but he's the people grew up in Bonanza. Lourdes even grew up in Bonanza in Brazil, right? It's all over. He was the little Joe Cartwright in Bonanza, and then later on, Little House on the Prairie, he was Charles Engels, and later on he played an angel, right? And Jonathan.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he played an angel, Jonathan, in Highway to Heaven. Anyway, she was working with Cheryl Landon, doing a lot of bookings for her. And Cheryl was like a sister with her, very close. And she's doing bookings all over the place, but a lot of them for Women's Federation for World Peace. And she didn't want to take money from Women's Federation for World Peace. The way Speakers Bureau goes is they get a set salary, and then you get a commission off the bookings. No matter where that speaker goes, directly or through a bureau, they get that set amount. But Lourdes was not taking her own and charging lower. And Cheryl became very, very negative. I mean, really, really, it's like a sister, like if one sister had stole the boyfriend of another sister or something. It was really tough. And the beginning of this happened, and Cheryl went off, Lourdes went off to a 40-day workshop in Chungpyeong. And I was stuck with this situation. And I'd come to the office and I dreaded it. I mean, it was like, the fax machine would have 3 or 4 pages of handwritten notes. I'm going to sue, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I really upset with you. And then phone calls, I'm going to be suing you, and this and that. Lourdes does well with these situations. I don't, okay? Speakers Bureau always changes. There's always speakers that are canceling at the last minute, or like Dan Quayle, one time a bomb, you know, he's flying on a plane and they got a bomb scare, the plane turned around. She just goes, oh, I'll get another speaker, you know. And for me, I couldn't deal with it, so huh? Yeah, to tell them, and she just, oh, okay, I'll get another speaker. You know, so it happens all the time. But so knowing that she deals well, I couldn't. I tried to call her in Chungpyeong. I don't know how many people have been to Chungpyeong. You can't get a hold of somebody in Chungpyeong. So I left a message. It's really terrible here. I can't deal with this. I got to deal with the Cheryl situation. And but then it cleared up. A few days later, it cleared up. And I was ecstatic because I had been dreading going to the office. And then Lourdes comes back. I pick her up at the airport. And I want to tell her right away that the situation with Cheryl is solved. And I mentioned Cheryl's name. She goes, oh, by the way, don't worry about Cheryl anymore. Because Cheryl, what happened, it cleared up. Cheryl was like, I love working with you guys. I love working with Lourdes. It was like a night and day. It was like, I'm so happy, you know, with you guys. I want to just keep working. And I go, so she said, don't worry, Cheryl's cleared up. I saw Michael Landon in Chungpyeong, you know, from the spirit world, her deceased father. I saw Michael Landon. He said he solved the situation with my daughter. She said, so don't worry about it. It had been solved, you know. I say this because she had I felt a very, and she's going to be upset because I'm supposed to be talking about father, but I'm sorry. But she had a very special relationship with Jesus growing up. And so I'm sitting at this meal with a conference. And we're all gathered around a table eating our meal. And she starts telling this story. And she starts saying, you know, as a little girl growing up in Brazil, she grew up in this remote little town, right? State of Paraná in Brazil. As this a girl growing up, I prayed to God. And I said, God, I want to have as a husband, I want to have an American. I want to have somebody who is educated. And I want him to have blue eyes. Now, I don't know if you can see, but I got blue eyes, right? So I'm sitting over there, and I'm feeling really good. I'm the fulfillment of her, you know, fulfillment of her prayers, her relationship with God. I'm the fulfillment. And then she adds, I only wish I asked God for somebody that was also rich and handsome. Okay. All right. I feel. Let me go on to the Pantanal. I got called to go down to the Jefferson House in Washington, D.C. by my father. It came on the, I'll mention it because it came on the foundation of having actually been out here on the river. The day before, the Friday before, Lourdes was gone down to Washington, D.C. The Western Literary Conference, 1997, okay? And it's right about 23 years from now. This was June the 13th was the Friday. June 15th when I went down to see Father. And so Lourdes was gone. I had the 4 kids, ages 2 to 8. And I got called all of a sudden to go up to UTS. I had to be able to move everything, all the cows and materials, because the fire marshal had a problem where they were at. So I took kids up there, let them run around on their own, moved everything over to the gym at UTS, came back. Should have went to bed, but the Chicago Bulls were playing, and Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen won their 5th championship that night. So I stayed up and watched that. Got up the next day, and then I went out here on the river, and the Delaware River. Bill Lay, if you know Bill Lay, had organized a canoe trip. 3 families went out there. I took my oldest son. We canoed down there. And this stretch here, north of Port Jervis. And of course I got back exhausted. You're canoeing all day, the hot sun, and you just want to get to sleep. I get back, and the babysitter that I had found for that day, she said, "Oh, Mr. Jew called, and you're supposed to be down in Washington, D.C." So I called around, got a hold of Mr. Jew, and he said, "Father wants to meet you. You have to come down immediately to Jefferson House." I said, "Well, yeah, I'll get out of here about 8 o'clock, and we'll get there at 1 o'clock in the morning." So he said, "Okay, do this after pledge tomorrow." So I drove down, had to find a babysitter, headed down. Actually, my mother's in the area. I got her to come over on short notice. "I'm sorry, I got to leave. Lourdes is gone. I got to go now." And drove down, got there till 1 o'clock, Grand Hyatt. And see, I know all these details because I keep a diary. I recommend everybody keeps a diary. You're having very special experiences right now, and remember these things later. I got down there. There's no cell phones for us, at least at that time. I wake Lourdes up at 1 o'clock. "I'm here. I need to get a couple hours of rest before I see Father." So I got into a hotel room, slept a couple hours, went to pledge. After pledge, the Jefferson House, Father called me into the dining room area to speak to me and wanted to talk to me about the Pontano. I was there because although I had a doctorate, the doctor was in biology and education. My master's degree was in really aquatic biology. It was in zoology, but aquatic biology. In fact, shortly after I met the church, I got asked to do a job as a research fisheries biology here in Pennsylvania. My dream job, but I had to say no. And so Father, because of that, wanted me to work in the Pontano. So he spoke to me about 2 hours about the Pontano. It was an extraordinary vision. And he talked about all kinds of things. He talked a lot about seaweed. He talked a lot about fish and water temperature in terms of fish. A lot about fish farming. And his big concern seemed to me about feeding the world. How we can be able to have fish farming and really deal with the hunger. Another one is in terms of leisure. And as we move into a more age where people have more leisure time, how to deal with that leisure. And we talked about everything. Sea lions, and they're salt water. Can they be raised in fresh water? It was a wild. And he said, "Your mission's now going to be in the Pontano." And I said, "Well, I'm National Society of the Dominican Republic." He said, "I know, but the reality is you're going to have to just go and visit there. You keep the mission, you'll visit there, but your mission's going to be in the Pontano." So I go home. That's Sunday, right? And I think, okay, a few months or so, I'll start preparing to go there. And Tuesday, I get a call, and they said, "Go World is trying to get in touch with you. Go World Travel." So I called Go World Travel, and they said, "Your ticket's all ready." I said, "What ticket?" "Well, you're booked on a 3-week ticket to go to Campo Grande, Brazil, which is just outside of the Pantanal area, and then on to Corrientes, Argentina, and then on to Montevideo, Uruguay. It's a 3-week trip." I said, "When are we leaving?" He said, "Tomorrow." I had no time. I had Lourdes pack me a suitcase, didn't even look into it. Headed off to New York, and had to deal with visa issues and some meetings. And get to the plane, and there's 9 of us there. True Father's there. The future second king, Youngjanim, is among those. Youngjanim is there. And Shinwanim as well. I have in my diary, and I never remember this detail, I have my diary, I was surprised how well Youngjanim speaks Spanish, as he was speaking to Alejandro de Souza, who was a translator, and was a very big assistance to me when I was down there. There's a lot of special experiences with True Father. So we flew down there. I have all the detail. I can tell you what seat I was in because I'd been on this flight. And I get down to Campo Grande and then to Salobra Hotel. And let me tell you, okay, first of all, the Pantanal, people that don't know the Pantanal, extraordinary area, right? It's bigger than Florida, the Pantanal. The area substantially floods during the wet season, and the water slowly goes down. About 70%, 75, 80% of it floods. Water rises up a lot, as much as 5 meters or so, 15 feet or so, and slowly recedes. Beautiful ecological paradise. You go there. On the banks, you'll see jaguars, so huge, bigger than any place that you'll see jaguars in the Pontano. And sometimes I saw 3 of them at one time next to each other. You see capuchin monkeys traveling through the trees, sometimes with their young on their back, swinging from branch to branch. There's almost 700 species of birds there. So you see these blue and yellow macaws flying through the sky with their slowly flying with their long tail trailing there. Gorgeous. Giant river otters. You see the tapirs in the water and then swimming underneath, down underneath the water. One went under our boat. Capybaras, world's largest rodent. Anyway, it's extraordinary. It's not why Father was there. It's also extremely difficult environment. And he led a very rigorous lifestyle there. In terms of the difficult environment, you think he might be in a palace there. No, it was a rough house with all these bushes and construction things around. Dirt road going up there. The sisters that were there, they used the bathroom in the woods, slept on the floor, the ones that were helping. And mosquitoes. Unbelievable number of mosquitoes. I mean, literally could see a cloud of mosquitoes coming. Let me give a quick shout out to my brother-in-law. He just passed away, and he had created a mosquito repellent that he wanted me to try out. He said he couldn't get an FDA to approve this thing, so he asked me to try it out. So I took it down there and used it, and it turned out it was an insect attractant. Mosquito attractant. I mean, I was just covered. But nothing like these mosquitoes. You're carrying an outboard motor on one hand, all your tackle on the other hand, and they just surround you. And don't think Father's immune to those. We had to bring mosquito spray to him. Lots of mosquitoes and poisonous snakes. And poisonous spiders, and you grab hold of a branch when you're fishing because you're along the edge and the red ants are biting you. I mean, it's a really rough environment, but Father's lifestyle there was really intense. There were times that 4 o'clock he wanted to be on the river. So 4 a.m. you're out on the river. It gets light at, again, the diary, 5:55 a.m., right? You're going up the river with a flashlight. And he likes to drive fast. So you're driving fast up the river. My guide, Fatoshi, regaled me with a story about how he was trying to follow one time Father's boat going fast, and his boat tipped over, right? Oh. And he climbed onto one of those trees with the red ants and the poisonous snakes and the jaguars nearby, and he hung there, and he hoped that when they got back to the camp, they would notice he didn't come back with them, and they'd come back for him. He just hung in that tree, right? They did. They noticed he wasn't there. They drove back till they found him. But you're driving up with a light going on. You're seeing the alligators, caimans, smaller kind of alligator. You're seeing their orange-yellow eyes everywhere, just filled in terms of the caimans. And he'd go all day. Father would fish all day. And it'd be hot. I mentioned Laura's pack in my suitcase. I might as well mention that I put in the diary that I opened it up, and I'm 80, 85 degrees out. I'm burning. I open it up, and there's 5 sweaters and a winter scarf. And I thought, I wrote my diary, what is she thinking? Well, about 3 weeks later, I put my diary, it's really cold out here, because I got cold at night. She's in the state down below, part of that. This is Mato Grosso do Sul that I was in. And it got really cold. I said, I'm really grateful for these sweaters, But anyway, it's a tough environment. Father was fishing just this kind of lifestyle, just going and going. And he explained a little bit about it. And I have in my notes, at one point I'm given a report, to give you an idea. I'm given a report, and I use the word happy. And it's getting translated into Korean. And Father goes, happy? No, happy. Serious. And that's what it was. He was really serious. He said at one point he was doing this for the 3.6 million blessing. So this is 1997. This is June 1997. He said at one time that, and by the way, he came back to me a little bit later, a few weeks later, and I was giving a report. He said, "So are you happy? Are you happy?" And I didn't want to lie to him. I'm thinking, I'm really happy. This is really an extraordinary experience. I said, "Yeah, happy." And he goes, "Work hard, work hard." And so he also said that he goes to be able to see God. He expects every day going fishing that he's going to be able to experience and meet God. And that God, he can see all the other animals, but he doesn't know where God put the fish, and he wants to see where God put the fish. And it's a time for him to pray, a time for him to be able to do a lot of deep thinking. And it was an intense life. You're out there in the boat all day long. It's not enjoyable. I grew up in a family that liked to fish, and you get to the point where you think, "Oh boy, I don't want to go fishing." But you go out there because you know. By the way, I get down there, and I'm supposed to go. They started going on the next leg of the trip onto Corrientes, and Father turned to me and said, "No, you stay." And he said, "And no salary." So 19 months, no salary. Don't mind talking about Loris. I'm sorry. I'm going to talk. She was up here, kids ages 2 to 8, 4 kids. And Father said, by the way, don't think about your family. But it's so I tried not to. But afterward, coming back, I realized what she had gone through. Also, Tom Ward, and I really love Tom Ward. He would write to me and tell me what Lourdes is doing. But ages 2 to 8, and she was witnessing, going down to Philadelphia in the radio shows. She had to make money for the family and for me. I got back after 19 months, by the way. I found 2 things. One was the car totally totaled. She'd been driving up when Father would come back and drive up to the Belvedere, and with the 4 kids, which I would never think about doing, and drive up there to see him, 2.5 hours from our home, and fell asleep coming back with the 4 kids, totaled the car. Everybody was okay, though.
Oh, it's a miracle.
The second thing I thought is I opened the drawer and found out how she dealt with all the bills. Opened the drawer and all the bills were in the drawer. She said, "I took care of the utilities, I took care of the mortgage." But she had to support me. By the way, Lord, you don't know this. I'm going to just throw one more thing. When I was down there to the Jefferson House, the first 10 minutes, Mr. Jew was introducing you, not me. He talked about you in the Speakers Bureau, and that whole time. Anyway, I'm grateful for you. Grateful for you doing all that, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to take care of the kids and all that. She got the flu for a week, and nobody take care of her, and she had the kids, so I'm really, really grateful. Anyway, before I get, let me tell a couple anecdotes in terms of Father down there. When I was down there, I was writing. I also worked on a book because I had so much time, and I was dealing in terms of the called the spiritual code, and Father, one of the points in there I called no self, is about when you're totally focused on other people and not thinking of yourself. That was Father. That was Father. So a few anecdotes. So one example. So I mentioned about difficulty of fishing. Well, one day we got the word that Father was coming in, flew into Campo Grande, was going to come there and want to go fishing. He was coming in late in the evening, so we figured fishing early in the morning. But then we got the word he's going to Jardim instead of Salobra. I was at Salobra. I was relieved. I thought I could sleep in. Jardim is 3 hours south of Campo Grande. That's the big city there. Salobra is 3 hours to the west. There is a road that partly up will connect to that road to go to Salobra, but it's at least 3 hours from Jardim to Salobra. So Father was due to get into Jardim around 12 o'clock. So there's no way he's going to come back and go fishing. the Japanese contingent was there, and he wanted to speak to them. So he got off. He drove the 3 hours. It's not a pleasant 3-hour drive to Jardim. Okay, you're talking a 2-lane road. One lane going both ways. Every time you come to a city, there's a bump, right? It's not a pleasant drive. And he did that drive and got down there to speak to the Japanese, and spoke to them until 1 o'clock in the morning. And then 4 o'clock in the morning, we all get woken up. Father's here. He wants to go fishing. He had drove straight back from Jardim on that miserable road, come back immediately to go out and go fishing. He's setting conditions. He had to speak to the Japanese. It was way out of his way. It was really difficult. He did that and then came up. Another example. One time when we were out fishing, they would pack a nice lunch for him. And he got out there and realized they forgot to put the lunch in for the person that's his driver, and the other person is with him, President Kim. And Father pretended it was their meal and gave it to them. It didn't take anything himself. They didn't find out till sometime later. So they ate the meal. Father didn't eat all day. Didn't eat all day and didn't even tell them. He comes back that night and he was asked, how was the meal? He said, I never got hungry all day. Then we found out the story that he just didn't eat all day. And I said, God, those hours are ridiculous, right? Early in the morning to late at night. Didn't eat all day. He gave his food to the other individuals. I noticed a similar thing, by the way, not similar, but in Jardim, when we were all gathering at the table, and he had one kind of dessert he really liked. I think it was a German sister made it. I don't know what it was, but I totally really liked that. And they served him that dessert. And then they served everybody at the table. He didn't eat. And then there's a lot of people gathered around, just the regular people, the people working on the farm, things of this nature. These are the regular members. In many cases, people that were sent out of their cities and that they were working in different areas in Brazil because they were difficult members or whatever. Everybody, because they'd eaten the meal already, everybody ate their dessert, but Father didn't. And then he said, got to serve all of them. So they waited till they got made for them and gave them all. And still he didn't eat. He didn't eat his dessert. I watched him until the last person got it. He looked up and saw the last person got it. Then he ate his dessert. Just focus on other people. That same time down there, he watched he wanted to have an experience with everybody, so he got everybody around to watch a soccer game. This is at night, one little incandescent bulb hanging down, bugs everywhere. The TV was tiny, right? And they're showing a videotape that was grainy. I couldn't see the soccer ball. I couldn't tell who was, I wrote down some of my notes who was playing, but you couldn't hardly see the players. I said, did Father ever see this game before? He said, yeah, he's seen this many times and on big TVs. He just wanted everybody to have an experience with him, sitting there late at night watching that game in those, very difficult circumstances. Anyway, totally thinking of others, right? I wrote down a few of the words from the diary. These are, did I bring it? I hope so. I must have brought some notes of Father's words. I'm sorry, I got something here. Just some of Father's words. You've heard these a million times, but this is sometimes when he was just with a few of us, and it's good to remember these kind of things because I wrote them down and recorded them. And God's way of doing is how much I can leave here. Not how much get, but how much can leave here. The owner is the one who loves the most. Elder cannot say, follow me, because I am the elder. Real elder is the one who loves the most. People will follow the one who loves the most. Very true, right? And that's what you felt from Father the whole time down there. He poured out so much into everybody, and set such an example. Again, 77 years old. Getting in and out of the boat is not easy, right? Being in a boat all day, getting up and out, I mean, it'd be help sometimes. Your back is stiff, right? And he was just setting an example. World truly centered on money. Eyes want to see money and ears to hear money, but must change. Key is love, not money. People come here to see where true Father fished. If we live for just our family, God not on our side, so family is going to fail. Do not be concerned with salary. This is what he's speaking to me, I think. Do not be concerned with salary. Do not think of salary. Think of doing God's will. Also, don't be concerned with your family. Think of God's will. The owner must give and forget, invest and forget, which you've heard. But again, Father's lifestyle is not to worry about eating, where to live, what to wear. Once start, must not stop. Once decide, have to go that way until you die. Father already enough foundation to do whatever he wants. Can use that foundation tomorrow, anytime. But he's just focusing on striving the most to be the leader of pioneers. 3 challenges to overcome: food, sleep, sex. One has to be like Father to enter the kingdom of heaven. Have to do more than Father to stand before God and true parents. Children have to do more than parent. Otherwise, no development. Okay? Nature is centered on love. He talked a lot about that there, by the way, many times, about looking at different animals, and nature is centered on love. One time he followed this this little animal around, he was just so immersed in it, and talked about all the birds are singing in love. The cities are a bad spiritual environment, and people need to come to the country and nature to meet God. That was one of his big focus. We got to be able to bring them out here to experience God, and you do. It's just amazing out there, being out in nature. And it's so beautiful here, Bluestone Farms, being out in nature, and much clearer spiritual atmosphere, and be able to experience God. It's important to understand Korean. Someone was speaking about that tonight. It's important to understand Korean. Without Korean, cannot really understand what True Father is saying in original sense, and also the expression of true love. I think this was not easy for me to learn languages. I think that was the big failure there. I ran into many roadblocks because of not being able to speak to Father in Korean. I tried to correct, for example, he was being told that the Amazon produces most of the world's oxygen. Most of the world's oxygen comes from algae in the oceans, fresh water, but all oceans. So Father I was trying to explain to Father, because he mentioned that, and explained that what really comes in, and I was totally, they started speaking in Korean. 2 people in the front saying he doesn't know what he's talking about. Alejandro's translating. They say you don't know what you're talking about. It's produced from the Amazon. It's produced by the trees. Amazon's an old growth forest. It doesn't produce much net oxygen at all. So what happens? Father ends up speaking to this professor. I'm there, and talks about that. And the professor comes to me and says, "That's not true. What's he talking about? Amazon produces most of the oxygen." So I couldn't speak Korean. I couldn't get through. He was given false information. That's the importance of telling accurate information to Father, right? Mm-hmm. Also, you'll see in his words now, he talks about 3,600 species of fish in the Pantanal. That was incorrect. That came from a video that was shown where he got a translation from the leadership down there that was talking about all of Brazil, including the oceans. 3,600 species of fish. I knew the number of species of fish. The identified species is 262 at that time, right? Of course, there's more than that, and they're always discovering new fish species, but nowhere near 3,600 species of fish. So I tried to correct Father on that, and so he'd get the correct information, but I didn't speak Korean. Again, he doesn't know what he's talking about, because they had the person had to defend having told Father this false information. And so, big problem not knowing Korean. You're very lucky, Second King is being able to speak to everyone in English, right?
Hallelujah.
Yeah, it's very, very amazing. Maybe I'll end with a couple quick anecdotes about the experience with this Second King and a couple of things down there. eventually flew down there with Shinwan Nim. Shinwan Nim was 9 years old. Second king was 17 at the time. And he was given conditions to Shinwan Nim. So he tells Shinwan Nim, one day not to speak. All day, don't speak.
Father told him that? Or?
No, it was the second king. And when he spoke, he gave him a hard time. So another time, don't look at Wanju McDivitt. Wanju McDivitt's there assisting True Father. Don't look at Wanju McDivitt all day. If you give it, we'll give you a tough time. And then one time told Alejandro, I want you to jump out of the bushes and scare. When the car comes up with Shinwan Nim, jump out and scare him. Well, Alejandro didn't know which car he was in. So he jumped out of a couple cars with different people in them before the car came up with Shinwan Nim. But he was very faithful. He was going to follow the directions, so he did. And one more, Rio Perdido. I wasn't there for the most amazing experiences with. It was like a Garden of Eden for Father, and Yunjanim would have been there, other true children, for these experiences at the. But I was there one day when Father was fishing. The water is kind of fast flowing, and I walked out to assist Father, and I noticed all algae covered on the rocks, very slipping. But Father was out there fishing in that environment. His hook would get stuck, so I'd unhook it. And at one time his hat fell off, and he reached for his hat, and Father went into the water. And young Janim, I remember this, not just in the diary, but I remember, ripped off his shirt, yelled at Mr. Yoon, "Why did you let Father go out in that tough spot?" and ran out to Father in the water to take him his dry shirt, and to assist Father. But Father kept fishing. He wanted to keep fishing, even though it was very difficult. He was doing a condition. He was going to continue with that. Anyway, I'm very regretful for experience there, but I'm glad I'm able to share these special experiences that I had with True Father, and kind of explain a little bit about, because people hear Father fishing, right? Fishing. And they don't realize how intense he was down there setting conditions. And setting conditions where he's hoping that other people will go on in the future, see where he fished, see where he went. Going up in the river at nighttime with a light. How do you get up the river? You have a light shining, going fast, running into bushes, running into trees, going up there, and fishing all day long and coming back and setting conditions, speaking to people at all hours. Just coming out and speaking till late at the night, early in the morning, setting conditions. And it was even more rough up in the Paraguay River, up in that area. That area was totally undeveloped. That was a very rough area. And he's up there and gathering people for pledge and to speak to people early in the morning, going out fishing all day, coming back late at night. You're exhausted. And by the way, I'd have to say, unbelievably humble. I wasn't even thinking of sharing this one, but I will. This one person went out there fishing for the first time, caught a big fish. Came back, for 45 minutes is explaining to True Father how to catch big fish. And Father sat there so patiently listening to this, right? And he was, and he won over, by the way, he won over his driver to join the church. The person who was driving him was not a member, just somebody there to guide him to where the fish were at, and totally won him over while he was there. But anyway, I guess I'll end with that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Want to offer a prayer?
Yeah. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful, so unbelievably grateful first of all, for creating such an extraordinary environment. The area around here is so beautiful. All the plant and wildlife and the eagles around here, the beautiful world in the Pontinal. Beautiful, extraordinary environment that you've created for us. And we're sorry that human beings have been so disunited, causing pain to you, that you have so much love and created this beautiful environment for people. And then that we have been so separated from you and not thinking about your heart. One amazing lesson that our true Father taught us was about, think about your heart, think about you. When we go through our day, think about bringing joy to you, and that's what he did. He must have caused so much pleasure to you, so much joy to see this sacrifice, but also so sad to see that so few people uniting and following that and living that kind of life for the sake of others, totally investing for the sake of others, and knowing that if everybody would just think of others and invest themselves for the sake of others and sacrifice themselves, that just like the beautiful creation, we'd have a beautiful, ideal world. We thank you so much for this, everything you've given to us, and we pray that henceforth we can think more about you and bring more joy to you. I offer this prayer in the name of Rick Swarts of the Central Bus family. Adieu. Rick Swarts.